मेरे से पहले 3 लोग बोल चुके हैं, ठंड काफ़ी है तो ज़्यादा नहीं बोलना चाहिए। मैं तो सोच रहा था कि एक जो है माफ़ी से शुरू करने की ज़रूरत है, क्योंकि एक सवाल लाजमी है और ख़ासकर 3 बाहर से आए हुए मेहमान हैं, उनके लिए तो पूछना ज़रूर लाजमी है कि ये इकोनॉमिक्स पढ़ाते हो सीएसपी में। उसने एमए जो है वो सीएसपी से किया था, निर्मला सीतारामन ने, तो ये सवाल तो पूछने की ज़रूरत है। और मैक्रो इकोनॉमिक्स उस समय पर शायद प्रभात पटनायक या अमित भादुरी ने पढ़ाया होगा। When the whole world would have said, you know, if you ask which is the best place to go and study economics of demand, they would have said go to CESP. If this is what she learnt about demand in in her masters, you know, we have to really be, you know, an apology is really due. But okay, let me sort of go beyond this joke, but and talk about a few things. As previous speakers have said, it's a budget which, I mean, is unusual because everybody is disappointed. And in fact, it's a budget that has come at a point of time where everybody, I mean, almost everybody agreed that there was a problem of demand. They differed in how they thought the problem of demand had to be handled. You know, I mean, people like us said, you know, expand government spending, put money in the hands of the poor, as Paranjoy was saying, poor spend more. So, you know, the best way of creating demand is to put money in the hands of the poor. I mean, mainstream media was talking about giving money in the hands of the middle classes. Poor don't exist for them. But, you know, everybody was somehow thinking that, you know, some money has, some thing has to be done to create demand. And then you come with a budget which does nothing of the sort. You know, it just, you know, doesn't do it in any which way. But it does many sinister things. Now, for those who are not familiar with budget documents, those who are not from economics, every budget gives you the budget estimate, the estimated spending on an estimated sort of resource mobilization for the next year. It gives you for the current year based on the data that have become available thus far. कोई 10 महीने का अगर आपके पास डेटा आ गया है तो उसके बेसिस पर you revise what you had said last time what you were going to do. Okay, so if you had said you're going to spend X amount of money when you presented the last budget, now you have done something, you have data for 10 months, you come up with revised estimates for this year. Okay, and for the previous year you come out with what actually happened, because for that year now you have all the data. Okay, so you have actuals for the previous year, you have a revised estimate for everything for this year, and you have a budgeted estimate for the next year. Now this is a pattern that you see has been happening through this sort of NDA Sarkar's budgets. That what you do is every year you present a number and then there is a huge revision downwards when the next year's budget comes out. So you say you are going to spend so much, but then when the next year's budget is announced, you realize that the revised estimate is much lower. You said you are going to collect so much from GST, turns out that you could go nowhere near that. And then when the actuals come out, it is still lower. Okay. Now this has become so systematic that, you know, that points to the fudging that you are doing. Not only has it become systematic, the differences are huge. Okay. Now earlier these differences would be relatively small. Now you are talking for each scheme, these differences being in the range of, you know, thousands of crores of rupees, being, you know, the numbers being sort of moved downwards. Now, so that's one thing that is there's a clear pattern there, that every year a picture is painted. How they're going to do this, they're going to mobilize so much money from GST, they're going to spend so much, 75,000 crores for PM Kisan, you know, so much for NREGA, this, that, and so on, and then you realize at the end of the year nothing of that has happened. Okay, so this is something that has sort of become a practice, that every time you just sow unrealistic estimates and then you revise them. Now, this year in particular, you find that the revised estimates for the current fiscal are substantially lower than what was budgeted. Now, I work on agriculture, so I looked at numbers for agriculture. PM Kisan, okay, 75,000 crores was budgeted, 54,000 crores has been spent. So 20,000 crores under PM Kisan has simply not been spent. Now, what is this scheme? You know, it's in fact an interesting thing. A substantial part of the budget that goes to agriculture, PM Kisan, crop insurance, these are schemes that don't actually work to improve conditions of agriculture. Okay, I mean, earlier you spent money for improving seeds, you provided better quality seeds, you subsidized fertilizer, you provided technology, or you invested in agricultural research, you invested in agricultural extension, or built dams or canals or did command area development, whatever. You did various things which would result in development of agriculture. Now you say, look, I'm not going to develop agriculture. If you have crop loss, I'll take care of your insurance. Okay, so you're not reducing the risk. You say, I'll cover insurance. Okay, even that doesn't happen, but you've stopped doing things that would reduce the risk of the farmer. Okay, or improve the productivity of agriculture. So you say, I'm not going to give you, I'm not going to provide you better inputs. I'll give you 6,000 rupees. That 6,000 rupees obviously for all poor farmers would basically go to fund their consumption shortfalls. Okay, just consumed. Okay, but you don't even do that. What you obviously did was, before elections, you just sort of wildly threw money in bank accounts of all kinds of people, including non-farmers. Anybody who had some land in their name was given some money. People whose land records were not updated, which is typically the poor farmers, because they just don't have the means to be able to get the land records updated, simply lost out, which shows up in the result that a very substantial part of something like 26% of potential beneficiary farmers have received money under PM Kisan, and then money has surely gone to non-eligible farmers. But in the end, you have a shortfall of 25,000 crores in just one scheme. Okay, take for example NREGA. Okay, now this is a period in which there's a huge slowdown. Okay, and there were arrears of payments of wages, and there was obviously a demand for doing more work. Okay, so something like 10,000 crores extra spending happens in NREGA. Where does the money come from? PM Gram Sadak Yojana fund money goes down. So you give from one hand, you take it away from the other. Okay. Now one thing, so basically what you find is that all the major schemes which provided support to the poor, provided support to workers, created employment, provided support to agriculture, all of them have seen a major cut. That cut continues. There are other schemes, for example fertilizer subsidy, where there are new cuts. So 11% cut in fertilizer subsidy in just 1 year. Okay, and as I think Paranjoy pointed out, or Tapan pointed out, that you're basically saying go to paramparagat krishi, stop using fertilizers, stop using better seeds, just do gobar. So cow dung is your recipe. Okay, now so this is something that you basically see across the board. There is one important thing Paranjoy pointed out: the public distribution system, National Food Security Act. There is a reduction of 41% in the amount of food subsidy that government bears. What has happened? Government is in fact sitting on massive food stocks. What government has essentially done is that it is not lifting the grain. Okay. Now what happens? FCI is sitting on massive food stocks. Okay. It is spending on maintenance of this stock. Okay, which is a huge expense. So earlier what used to happen was, there were periods when FCI would have large stocks. it would spend on those stocks. And particularly during the neoliberal period, this is a problem that has started happening during, I think, 99-2000 was the first time when this happened, that FCI was sitting on huge stocks. That was in fact the Vajpayee period. It was a government supported by Chautala, Badal and Chandrababu Naidu. Three sort of political leaders who basically drew their support from rich peasantry. So there was pressure to do procurement, but there was also pressure not to expand public distribution system. That was the worst period where the public distribution system had been cut down. So FCI was sitting on huge food stocks, which meant that FCI spent huge amount of money in maintenance of this stock. Okay, in fact, and the calculations were made that if government gives out this grain for free, you would reduce your fiscal deficit because you would not be spending on maintaining this stock. It is cheaper for the government to just distribute for free. But government did not distribute for free. What government did was it exported the grain at loss. Okay? It exported the grain at loss for feeding to animals in other countries rather than allowing that to be distributed for feeding people in the country. Now something similar is happening now, but much worse. What are they doing? Government is not off-taking the grain. Okay, so government is not distributing in India. FCI is sitting on this grain, spending the money, and government is saying we will not pay you. So what FCI is being told to do is go borrow. So FCI is borrowing to cover the cost of this grain, which FCI is in fact now unable to sell to exporters. There is no demand outside. So it's been trying to sell it at a loss. It is not able to sell at a loss. Government is now telling FCI to reduce the price further, incur higher loss, but somehow dispose it because the Rabi harvest is going to come and you're going to have empty your go downs. Okay, how does FCI do it? Sell it at loss and borrow. In the end, in November 2019, FCI was sitting on 2 lakh crore of debt. Okay, that debt is set to rise further because FCI is being made to borrow more, sell it at a loss to exporters who would export this grain to feed animals in the Western countries, but government is not going to offtake that grain, use it to feed people in the country. India is the country with largest number of hungry people, 472 million, not 47 million, 472 million people who cannot get adequate amount of calories. Okay, government does not use this. Now this would be the best way. In fact, this was the solution Nirmala Sitharaman needed to do. You had this food stock. You were wasting money in maintaining this food stock. You just needed to take it out, have a massive food for works program, use this to pay wages. Grain goes in the hands of people, people have money, they spend, that builds your demand. Okay, you had a sure shot, simplest direct way of boosting your demand. You don't do that. You are pushing FCI, turning it into a loss-making enterprise, and essentially you are going in a direction where basically you're going to say now FCI should start selling off its go downs. Its real estate, its land will have to be sold off to cover the losses that FCI is being forced to incur. Okay, so this is the direction in which country is being taken, where public sector enterprises, as Tapanda was talking about, are being sold for, in fact, being sold for a song. Government has not been able to sell Air India, so the prices would be reduced further. People are being laid off to somehow make this acceptable to some buyer who's going to be willing to buy. Now you put Life Insurance Corporation on the dock. Okay, so one after another, you're basically sort of taking the public sector units out and selling them. Now this brings me to the other aspect of this budget. At every level, you see that the burden is transferred from the rich to the poor. In fact, it's quite incredible how blatantly it is done. I don't know if it's foolish or blatant. I mean, for example, look at this, what they've done to income tax. First, she says that she's going to try and simplify it, and she obviously makes it more complicated. So the entire complexity is retained, plus she comes up with 6 more slabs of income tax slabs, and now everybody is wondering should you file under the old scheme or the new scheme. Okay, but just think about this. This is very simple mathematics. I mean, it's incredible how this entire government can't think of this. And in fact, within an hour, every tax consultant had figured it out that it's not worth it. Okay, because you see, for a poor person, the various exemptions, standard deduction, this, that, and so on, constitute a fairly substantial part of your income. Okay, so if you earn, say, 10,000 or whatever, let's say 20,000 rupees a month, or let's say 30,000 rupees a month, 3,60,000 rupees is your total annual income. Bulk of that is taken out because of exemption, and you end up paying tax on a very small amount of money. Okay, now even if you pay 20% tax on that small amount of money, the tax is not very much. Okay, now if you say that this entire exemption, say let's say of 2.5 lakhs of exemption that you used to take benefit of is going to be taken out, even if I reduce my 20% to 10%, the tax is going to go up. Okay, so for a poor person, tax goes up because exemptions were a very substantial part of your total income. What happens to the rich? For the rich, exemption was a relatively smaller share of your total income. So if the exemption goes out, but my tax rate goes down by 10%, I actually make a benefit. So you have actually changed. This new thing that you've done in income tax is a regressive change. What you've done, income tax is one tax which is redistributive. No, the rich are taxed more than the poor. You've changed it into a system where the rich are being given the benefit and the poor are not being given the benefit. Okay, this is seen everywhere. The companies used to pay tax on dividend deduction tax or something, it was called DDT. Now that's been taken out, the burdens passed on to shareholders. Okay, so at every level you basically give the benefits to the big and you pass the burden to the small. The other is, massive payouts to big capital. Okay, some 200 new trains to be started in PPP mode to take whatever, Every district hospital will be attached to a medical college in PPP mode. What does that mean? You'll have private hospitals being handed over the district hospital. So district hospitals will be basically handed over to private medical college. What are these private medical college? Rockland is a medical college. There's no medical education or medical research happening there. It's just a profit-making hospital. Okay, so what you're basically doing is a district hospital is going to be privatized. Okay, this is seen everywhere, in every sort of area. You find, in fact, PPP was one thing that she kept saying. So, I mean, there are in fact two words that most frequently used words in budget speech. Which were the two words? Modi and PPP. Exactly. And every time she said Modi, the Lok Sabha TV camera moved to Mr. Modi and Mr. Modi shied. And then she said PPP. So Modi and PPP dance went on for 2.5 hours. But, this, you basically had a situation where, across the sectors, you've opened up different ways in which you're going to, hand out national assets to big capital. That's the direction in which that budget has gone. It's quite incredible that she should try to do this at a time like this, where, if she had done something to boost the demand, it would have actually received widest possible support, because everybody thought that there was a problem. Now, in fact, what is unfortunate is that in a lot of media at a time like this, the focus is on, should the middle classes use the new scheme for income tax or old scheme for the income tax? Everybody is going to be losing their jobs. You have a situation where you have such a serious slowdown, you're going to lose your jobs. I mean, you won't be a taxpayer anymore. I mean, you have a situation where the crisis that is facing the country, the economic crisis that's facing the country, is so severe, and this budget has so completely failed to give any direction which would, give any hope of a revival, that you actually are now facing something which is a serious crisis, which is not going to be very easy to get out of. So I think I'll stop.
Thank you.